Hello and welcome everybody for tuning in, as well as watching another show of MEDtalkx. So we are live today on both YouTube as well as our Facebook page. So please do search for MEDtalkx with an X. So that's certainly an avenue for you to interact with us. And of course, we can never forget Pendle Community Radio, AWAS 103.1 FM, have kindly given us this regular slot. So do get in touch with us. The studio numbers are 01282 723 455 and WhatsApp number is 075 22 723 455. So over to you, Faheem, to introduce our guest for today.
Thank you, Mehran. A warm welcome to our guests this evening. We have Shahid Salim, who I gather is a regular on the show for Pendle, commissioned by the CCG. It's quite a long title. We will come to what that actually means shortly, I'm sure, Shahid. He works with the BAME communities, speaking Urdu, Punjabi and Hindi, and used to cover East Lancashire, but now Pendle for 13 years in a variety of different roles. Normally, your working day would involve, obviously, the different kinds of face-to-face interactions, but obviously now it's moved on to Zoom calls. Is that right, Anne?
That's right, very much so, yes.
Great.
Trying to keep engaging.
Yeah. Yes. Excellent. So if we start with you, Anne, could you first just tell us a little bit about what loneliness is for the audience?
Right, well, loneliness is really a state of mind. We talk often about loneliness and isolation, and they are actually two rather different things. So whereas isolation is more about where people live, how they live, living apart from other people, loneliness is very much a state of mind. So feeling disjointed from other people, not feeling that you have connectivity and other people around you, that your friends, your family, and can lead to very much depression and very, very low mood.
And Shahid, if I ask you, could you tell the listeners a bit more about your role and how that contributes to addressing, or at least understanding, what loneliness means?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I really appreciate for the invite today, and that you have invited Age UK Lancashire and myself to talk about this very huge and very important topic, loneliness, especially in BAME communities. I work as an independent coordinator now in Pendle, but I worked on Reaching Community project, which was delivered by Age UK Lancashire in East Lancashire for 5 years. And that was particularly for people from the Black ethnic minorities. And we were working with the men and women over 50s in 4 big, large districts, basically East Lancashire, Pendle, Burnley, Hindburn and Rosendale. And then obviously it was a kind of extended to different project called Reaching Community. And that was a 3 years project. We worked again, focusing how we can reduce loneliness and how we can promote healthy eating in our, especially BAME community in culture, where we use a lot of salt in our food, oil, and spices. We love spices. I think British all love spices. And so we worked on the political, project Reaching Community, try to reach all the communities in East Lancashire and educating them and basically raising the awareness around healthy eating, physical activities, and how we can reduce loneliness in BAME community. Then obviously now I'm working on a different project called Integrated Care Program, which is commissioned by CCG. And this was a pilot in Cornwall. This started about 4 years ago, and it was so successful there. And so it is not only for BAME community, it is for everyone who is over 65, but now it's reduced to over 50. So I'm working now, I'm focusing only in Pendle. We have other about 8 people who are covering these 5 big areas. But I am based in Pendle at Cone Health Centre. So that's my role, kind of working with GPs and going and doing an assessment, having a chat with the person who has been referred by a health professional. This person can be referred by GP or nurse or any health professional, or even third sector organization. They can refer the patient, but this is not self-referring program. It has to be referred by someone, a professional, and then we take a referral, and then obviously we go and do an assessment, and then we support over 12 weeks if it is needed, and it can be finished before. But I have some people I've been supporting them over 12 months. Can you believe that? Obviously, the project only allows 12 weeks, but because of the need and because of the circumstances, we can't just discharge the person. We can't just leave the person in the mess. So we basically go the extra mile to support that person. So presently, I am working with all the surgeries in Cone and in Bryfield and in Nelson with the GPs, but I'm based at Cone Health Centre.
That's fantastic, Shahid, and obviously a great deal of work's been ongoing, and this is probably an evolving dynamic area, isn't it? Especially how Age UK as well as other charities are working within the community. And if I ask you a question, so there's obviously there's a provision there once you get referred to a charity such as Age UK. But what do people in the community need to look for? Obviously, we talked about definition, about loneliness. So it's a very deeply personal experience, isn't it? So trying to unpick.
How to unpick it. I think we knew before even the pandemic hit us that over 35,000 older people in Lancashire said that they were lonely all the time. And we hear the stats across the country that 1 million people say that the television is their only form of companionship. We also have the stats, previously about, being lonely has the equivalent effect on your life expectancy as smoking 25 cigarettes a day. Can reduce it for up to 5 years. These were all stats that we knew beforehand. And then now we've had the added layer of COVID and people actually who could at least before had the option of coming out of the house and talking to people, being forced to stay at home. And we've seen, such an exponential growth in these feelings of loneliness. And as you referred to Santander's report that just came out about a week or so ago, and they've been working closely with Age UK nationally and the Alzheimer's Society, making befriending phone calls to older people. And they've said that about 50 over 55s said that they were far more missing their friends far more than anybody else. 25% of those people said they were drinking excessive amounts, and 40% said they were eating too much. Now, people tend to, if you ask them how much they drink, people tend to always underestimate how much they drink. And so for them to admit to drinking excessively, I think really says something about people's state of mind. And I think another thing that we've really found as well amongst over 55s is that they're less likely to ask for help as well when they need it. So although support and help has been out there, they're still not coming forward to ask for it. So there's been some very worrying stats, and particularly with people living with dementia and carers for people living with dementia, they've seen such declines, really, really rapid declines in the cognitive abilities of their loved ones because they've been enclosed at home and they don't understand why they can't get out and the frustrations. And we did respond to that by setting up a Zoom support group specifically for carers and for people with dementia, which has been really well accessed. It grew very rapidly and is open to all. So I think we've just seen, we knew there was a real issue with loneliness, and reports have been written, Lancashire County Council's written reports. People have been very slow to provide funding to help us address these issues, but suddenly it is something that's really on the radar and the public conscious, and I hope that that's going to really help us going forward as an organisation. We've been doing this for 70 years, but suddenly I think the charitable sector has sort of come to be recognised for the important roles that we have, and we hope that that goodwill and that support stays with us going forward.
Excellent. Shahid, I want to bring you in at this stage. Can you tell us a bit about what are the things that can be done in the Northwest, people listening in or watching, to actually help others with loneliness, and how they can detect it, and how they can perhaps even get involved with Age UK?
Sorry, I could not hear Faheem.
Yeah, no, I was saying that how they could get involved with Age UK people.
No, still not.
So should I answer that whilst you try and sort out your sound? I can hear, yes.
Okay, maybe it's just Shahid's sound. And if you want to just tell us then about what people can actually do to actually help locally, while Shahid maybe can't hear the volume.
So I mean, people, there are myriad of voluntary organisations, including ourselves, that people can get involved with to help support people in the communities. And any volunteering opportunities we have are always on our website, so people are very, very welcome to get in touch. And that includes working in our charity shops or helping on Shahid's team with the independence coordinators. People can get involved on a trustee level, and we're always looking for people to join our teams. We have wonderful hospital aftercare teams helping people when they come home from hospital, and newly established Good Day Call service, which came in at the beginning of COVID as a response to a lot of these loneliness issues. And we provide a daily phone call to people who are isolated at home and very anxious. And we currently phone about 350 people every single day. So it's a way of checking that they're up, they're out of bed, and to be able to have continuity of contact with somebody that gets to know them. So so people can get involved with us in different ways, and we're always looking to partner with other organisations. Part of my role prior to COVID was running a lot of community hub meetings, either dementia specific or in the community, to provide information on things like winter resilience and the support available. So we're really, really keen to partner up with as many local Pendle organisations as possible. One of the organisations I've sort of met through this virtually is Rise Support, who I'm sure you're all well aware of, but we've been able to try and get our links out as well. So really, anybody that's interested in working with us, to please look at our website, see the volunteering and work opportunities, give us a call. Fundraising, we're always looking for people to help us with fundraising, or if you've got spare PPE kit lying around, we could very much use it. And we've been Shahid will back me on this, we've been really, really supported by the East Lancs community in terms of support. Can I just mention as well, while I think about it, we're talking about connectivity and loneliness. We've had some tablets, IT tablets, donated by an organisation called Softcat, and they're specifically set up for people to Zoom, Teams, Facebook, family members. They're not there for browsing the internet, but they probably could get on YouTube with it and see this programme. But they're really there for people to be able to communicate with family and friends. And so anybody that's interested, please do get in contact. Because even as lockdown lifts, it doesn't make a jot of difference. If your family lives in London and you live in Cone, you're not going to be seeing much of them anytime soon, are you?
Yeah, no, and I fully understand where you're coming from there, Anne. Shahid, you're about to say something just then.
I was just going to, when Anne mentioned about this, yes, you can contact us. He was just thinking, why don't you give a number so people can contact?
Yeah, yes. Well, our number is 0300 303 1234. It's a good job I didn't have a moment, Shahid. I have many. We have a dementia service. I need it sometimes. 303 0300 303 1234. or advice@ageuklancs.org.uk, or Facebook, or Twitter, or even Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot. I'm an old bird, but I'm learning an awful lot at the moment.
Fantastic. So we'll just make sure all those kind of links and all that data is attached in the description, as well as obviously tie into the Age UK brand itself. So if people want to get in touch with their local Age UK organisation, they certainly can do. So certainly the prevalence, we've talked about how common it is. How does Age UK, and I guess I'll leave it for both of you, because there are a number of factors, aren't there, that can contribute or cause loneliness. One being about poor health, low income, age. Unfortunately, as you get older, your support network may start to fragment. So how does your organisation try to correct that?
I just want to mention a couple of things before, sorry, Han. In my experience, because I worked nearly over 6 years with the BAME community, I just want to pick a couple of examples from there. Language is another problem as well. Yes, income, but language as well, because I think, like, I take myself an example. I born in Pakistan, and I came to live in England about 15 years ago. And when I came first time, though I studied in English medium school in Pakistan, I did not have the confidence to speak English with an English person. And I was hesitating all the time. I was quiet, and I was trying to avoid the company. I was trying to avoid people, only because if I will say something wrong, if they will laugh at me, if I can't answer the question. So that's really a problem I find in my work as well. When I was working with the men, in Pakistani men, the language was barrier. But when I start speaking Punjabi and Urdu, they were so comfortable. They just kind of open up so much. They can tell me anything. They can ask me anything. So language is another problem, because I think sometimes we ignore that. And secondly, I found that though traditionally we think that the traditional family structures, particularly in South Asian communities, it is great, but I think there is a hidden loneliness as well. Sometimes we can't see. Now the young people are, they have their own families, though they are together. But a lot of people told me that they're still lonely. Though they living in a big family, but young people have, obviously now they speak in English all the time. They don't understand Urdu or Punjabi or other languages, but their kind of first language is English. But people came from Pakistan or Bangladesh or India or Africa. Specifically these three culture, like India, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, African, they are more poor than Indians. And I was reading a study, and it was saying about 50% people, they come from Africa and Pakistani and Bangladesh, they are poor. 50%, and Indians about 30%. I don't know how right it is, but I was thinking, it was shocking that when we think BME, we obviously think all of black ethnic minorities, but there is a division as well in it. So hidden loneliness, I was saying, when I see now people, even indigenous communities, now it is more, they are more isolated. I just want to pick in one example before Anne comes in. That I went to see a man before COVID-19, and he was only on a small pension, and obviously no family. He has a mom, very old. She's living in a nursing home, and he's kind of facing very severe health issues, and which was basically a big barrier for him to go out, and no cars, no computer, but he plays a really good music. And so when I went to see him, first thing he said, he's lonely. And I said, why don't you? Because you play really good music, why don't you go and play somewhere? He said, no, because I can't go. I have no car. Somebody has to take me, first of all. I have no money, so I can hire a car or taxi to go to the place. So what we start doing, we start advising and helping physically to claim what he was entitled for, like attendance allowance, and we secure a high rate of attendance allowance for him. And then we applied a pension credit for him. So the income started coming, and he bought new car. And then not new car, but second-hand car, but he got a car. Then he got a source to go somewhere. And then he bought a laptop. He bought a new guitar, and his life completely changed. And then he started connecting with the people in the community. He started playing in a pub in Burnley somewhere every week, and that was his company. Though he was playing free, but he's in a company. And then we invited him at Christchurch as well, and he was so happy. And he was telling me that the few things, obviously the main was income. The income changed his whole life, and it made him able to go out and see people, meet people, and spend time with them. And that's great. And that's Age UK is doing, not just going and talk and saying like, okay, yes, loneliness is a problem. Okay, we are here to accompany. We do practical stuff. We help people with the income. We help people with how we can get them into the community, and it's all linked, isn't it, Anne?
I've met this gentleman. I've seen the proof. I've heard him play and sing at an event we had in Nelson, and he's a real success story for which we're very proud. But actually, we're not unique by any stretch of the imagination. My pride for the team that we have in East Lancashire is just supreme. And I think what Shahid is saying about causes, language barriers are huge, especially I would think in a lot of older ladies that have come over from South Asia, for which English has never really become the language. And if a husband perhaps dies and they're widowed, and the children, as you say, are growing up and having their own families. I've heard of severe issues during COVID where ladies haven't been given information by their families. There've been quite a lot of really severe issues where they've been kept in the dark even about what's going on. So how terrifying might that be? So we've got issues, I think, around language, which I have to point out, I think, at this stage that some of our East Lanc staff speak up to four languages. So we have one lady who I think has about 5 languages to her bow. So when works on our Good Day Calls team. So it means that if people do speak pretty well any of the Asian languages, we've got it covered. Though it's a very small team, it's a very talented one. And I think Shahid was saying, death is a huge cause of loneliness, especially I think when men are the ones left behind. Women are very often the driving force in social lives and keeping families together, etc. So if the wife dies, we find often that the men, as in Shahid's example, don't go out, they don't socialise, and until recently we had a veterans project in East Lancs, and we had a gentleman there, I remember, who used to go dancing all the time with his wife. Well, as soon as she died, that was it. He stopped, he didn't go anywhere. So our colleague took him back to the old dance class he went to and took him every session until he got back into it and became part of the group. So we've got finances, we've got death, bereavement, language, people going into care homes. My own father's really suffered since my mum went into a care home. He kept her at home as long as he could, had the guilt of not being able to cope anymore, and and has faced COVID, very much on his own. And he's been one of the examples of people that have broken lockdown. What did we say? About 12% of adults have broken lockdown because of loneliness. And I'd put my 91-year-old dad in that category as well. So sadly, he lives quite a long way from us. So there's lots and lots of different ways. And I think finding out the roots of that and why people are lonely, be part of the way down the track of being able to help. And so this is where our PICs, as Shahid is called, personal independence coordinators, can really, really help by just looking at the root of the problems and finding the solutions. It might be just a group that they go to. It might be that now it's a virtual group, a virtual dementia hub, a virtual singing group, a virtual dance class. There are so many different things springing up now, and life will go forward that way. I don't think we're ever going to have as many groups for a lot of older people, because we're going to be, I think, in lockdown for older people, the most vulnerable, for a long, long time to come. Those are just, I think, some of the things that cause loneliness. And one of the things that we're doing as an organisation is running retirement planning classes, and set them up just before lockdown, did our first ones, and lockdown came. So we're now moving those onto a virtual platform. And one of the things we cover in that really, really heavily is how you're going to use your time in retirement, and how you're going to stop yourself becoming lonely, especially if you live on your own, if you're a single person facing retirement, and the real importance of planning for your retirement and really, really thinking about it well in advance. What are you going to do? Because in 6 months you've done the garden, you've done everything in the house, you've painted the garden shed, and you've reorganized a spice rack. So what are you then going to do after that? And that's when the rot often sinks in for people. So quite a bit of careful planning before entering retirement can make a huge, huge long-term difference. And also making sure that you've got money for retirement as well, and getting good advice. So sometimes a bit of forward planning and a bit of learning, a bit of digital learning, which of course again is being pushed very much to the forefront by COVID, is the need for older people. People who've always said, hey, I'm not bothering with those computer things, I don't need to do it, actually now are Zooming their families. And we've seen some absolutely marvellous results of loneliness being reduced by Zooming.
I just want to add one more thing. Sorry, Faheem. Like good day calls, I just want to give an example. I rang because we can't go and see people face to face in their homes at the moment. From last nearly over 12 weeks, we could not do this, and we still can't. And there are so many examples I can give. Just one example. I rang a lady a couple of weeks ago, and I was thinking maybe I will talk to her about 10 minutes maximum, or like 5 to 10 minutes. But you won't believe that she talked to me, and I was just listening. I did not say anything. I just say, hello, I'm ringing from Age UK. I'm supposed to come and see you, but I can't at the moment in the lockdown. She said, yeah. And she spoke 45 minutes. I checked on my phone. I said 45 minutes. And she told me she obviously, the husband died. And she told me about friends. She told me where she used to live in Pendle. She used to live in Lancashire Bridge. Now she lives in Cone. And she told me where she went to school, which school she went. She just wanted to tell all of this, and I was just listening ear there, and I was just listening, and I said, yes, that's wonderful, so, and that's reducing loneliness. And she was so pleased when I rang back this week, yesterday, that I rang back again. But obviously I didn't listen for 45 minutes again. But she was telling me her friend came after 12 weeks to see her male friend, and they spent a time in a garden. They had a lunch, and she was so pleased. So something like that. We have that project, Good Day Calls, and I think we have extended that, if I'm not wrong, Anne.
Yes, absolutely, yes. We secured funding from Lancashire County Council right at the beginning of COVID to run the Good Day Calls, really for the people on the shielded list, to make sure that that the welfare was kept an eye on. We've managed to secure additional funding from elsewhere now to keep it going until at least the end of the year, and hopefully once we've proven the need now. We've been trying to set up a Good Day Calls project, and it's something I've been working on for 2 years of trying to get funding without any success. And now I think COVID has just really sort of brought to the fore the real need for these services. And it's different. People can have a falls alarm. You can have the falls pendant around your wrist or around your neck for that sort of security. But that's not a person ringing you, every day to check you're out of bed and you're up and about and how's the dog today, or have you spoken to your grandchildren, and knowing about the person, as Shahid says, listening and then being able to bring that back into conversation. So we're absolutely delighted that we've now actually got this funding, and the evidence of need that we can now put forward is going to be great. We've also secured a little bit of funding from Age UK nationally from their COVID funds to hire a researcher to work very specifically in the BAME community to find out what people want, what support we can give. I mean, Shahid's already mentioned in the past, we used to run Reaching Communities programs, which were really, really successful. So we want to know, is there still a need for that? Do people still need activity groups and education around food? I know some of our younger Asian colleagues are trying to teach aunties to reduce sugar and salt in food and things with varying success, I think we would say. So, some of those things that we're aware of. What do people want from us as an organisation? Because we're there for everybody. It's and all our services that we currently have, whether it's hospital aftercare or personal independence, good day calls, are there for everybody. But I think because there's a lot of family support and hidden loneliness, as we've already said, but family support, sometimes people don't come forward for those services. So what we want to know is, what do you want from us? What can we offer? What is needed? What is stopping you? Is it because you feel that we won't be able to speak your language? When in fact, we'll have people who probably can. And so watch this space, and it'd be very, very, very useful. Perhaps we could come on the show a little bit later with the researcher and maybe ask for people's input. Or people to contact me now, please. Hit the phones with questions, email me, bombard me.
I'm glad you mentioned questions, Anne. We've already had a question come in, so we'll probably just take this question and then move on to the break after that, if that's okay with you both. What is the psychological impact on people because of loneliness? Can you hear me, Shahid? Or even Anne, you want to take that?
Yes. What's the psychological?
Yeah.
Depression can be a result from it. Low mood, depression, lack of confidence to go out and do the things that you used to do, lack of self-care. Why bother? I mean, we've seen it a bit in COVID when we're all working from home or living at work, as people are now saying. Why bother, getting out of your pajamas in the morning to work if you're at home? And so people who are feeling lonely, often they stop bothering about. People who previously were very particular about how they lived. They always had the makeup on or shaved or however you want to put it, very particular, start not looking after themselves, not feeding themselves properly. Why bother making a meal for one when you can open a tin of baked beans? And I think if people are worried about family members or even themselves, to think about that, have your habits changed? Are you still looking after yourself? Are you feeling less confident? Are you starting to feel depressed? And to try and think, well, what can I do to help address it? Whether it's going out and doing a little bit of exercise, trying to meet people, picking up the phone. People do still use the ordinary telephone, actually, or even write a letter. Snail mail still works. But to try and to maybe to think about noticing it in ourselves and in other people, because I think it's like a lot of things in life, it can just creep up on you a little bit. And it's not just always a sudden bereavement, but changes in life, whether it is a health scare or, change in activity levels because of health, or a bereavement, or being separated by care homes, etc. Big causes of these changes. And really just think about yourselves and others. Are you feeling that change in yourself or noticing it in others? And, ask for help. People are there to help. People want to help. Look at the millions of people who signed up to volunteer at the beginning of COVID, many of whom have actually never been used because there were so many people, you know, in communities. And it's shown the real best of us. People want to help, so don't suffer alone, you know. Ask.
Thank you so much. I think you both have given a clear working example of how community-based approach to combat loneliness can be certainly delivered. There's more questions coming through. We'll try to address that after the break. But I guess the other thing I'd like to get your thoughts on is about loneliness and apathy. How does it overlap, and what can we do as a community to try and address that? So we'll just be off for about 2 minutes, but I hope to see you all shortly. Hello and welcome everybody for the second half of MEDtalkx, being broadcasted live on Pendle Community Radio Wires 103.1 FM, as well as our YouTube and Facebook pages as well. So we've had a great discussion with both Anne and Shahid from Age UK Lancashire about the importance of addressing loneliness. And one of the things that I was curious to try and get your understanding was about where does apathy sit? We're trying to address and understand loneliness, because there is some data suggesting that apathy could be one of the early signs of difficulties in later life, such as, say, dementia or other mental health problems.
Yeah.
So, so I don't know what your perspectives were.
I think you're absolutely right. There's very, very strong evidence to show that the people who develop dementia are often ones who have led less stimulated, active lives than everybody's saying now. You know, to stay, lots and lots of evidence to stave off dementia. Keep active, keep healthy, keep eating well, keep connected, keep learning new things. So keep learning a language, learning how to ride a bike. Learning new talents are all ways of staving it off. So the flip side to that is if you start to get apathetic and stop doing those things, then it's more likely to lead to more health issues, and it also to other things, heart disease, and other issues as well. There's also a famous part of the brain that we call the chimp, and some of you may have heard of Professor Stephen Peters, who wrote a book called The Chimp Paradox. And the chimp is a person who lives in our brain who tells us not to do things. So it's part of the embedded flight and flight mode of our brain and the evolution of our brain. And it's the bit of the brain that when you say, I've got to go out and do that gardening now, that says, you know what, you don't have to be bothered now, you can do it tomorrow. And I think if we learn to recognise that fact as well, and it's something that I've come to quite recently. Mine's called Frida, and so when I'm wanting to do something and I'm saying I've got to do that, and it's part of my brain say, oh, it can wait. I say, oi, Frida, listen to me, I'm doing it now. And so that's all about apathy. It's all about putting things off, and it doesn't really matter anymore. It doesn't matter if I go out and do anything. I don't need to go to the shop. Why bother? And so all of these things, that apathy just creeps in, and the less you do, we all know it's a downward spiral. The less you do, the less you want to do. I don't need to go out for that exercise anymore. You know, it doesn't matter if I put on weight. My husband's not around to notice anymore. Nobody's telling me that I look nice or I don't look nice, so why should I bother? All these sorts of things. And I think, again, if people can recognise it a little in themselves or in family members, there's some early stage clues. And so much, you know, if people just ask a little bit for help, there is so much that people can be doing that in the communities, online, offline. If people just prepared to look for it.
I just want to share my own experience. When I talk about dementia, just take as an example, dementia, when I talk back home, and I asked them, especially my elderly people, I said, I have my uncle, my auntie, and my mom and my dad. I said, have you heard about dementia? They said, what is that? Is that a new food? I said, no, it's not a food. I said, it's a disease. And they said, well, no, we don't know. I said, it's like a memory issues, loss of memory and stuff. They said, no, we are okay. We never heard this about, dementia. So that tells me that, like we were talking about traditional family structures, I think the socializing, the meeting people, doing things physically, it helps. And I'm really convinced that isolation plays a big part. And I was asking my daughter that, what do you think about stress and dementia? Are they linked? She said, Daddy, I think they are linked, because when you have a stress, and obviously you have a pressure on your brain, and your 5 brains in your head, they try to work, and you have a pressure, you have a stress, and then you have isolation. And I think they damage the brain. And obviously dementia is when your brain is damaged, or partly damaged. So I really believe that people who are physically active, people who are more socializing, people who are helping people, and they have a belonging to the community, and they know they recognize that they have a role to play, like volunteering, in a different organization. Those people live longer. Those people live more happier. And I think there is a secret I learned myself, that giving brings a joy in your life. And sharing brings a joy in your life. And then when we are, I hate to say, but I think we are in a society when there is everybody is looking only, oh, this is mine and this is me and this is my family, this is my life. And so we are being like a little bit self-centered. So, but I think giving is so important that it brings so much back in your life that, you can't believe sometimes that your joy you get by helping someone, the peace you have in your heart when you help someone, whatever ways you can help. And I think dementia is definitely linked when people, like, I just want to go back again. We used to deliver computer classes. We still do delivering computer classes. Computer classes is, yes, for older people to learn technology, but at the same time, this computer classes is basically bringing people together so they can have a chat, they can have a just laugh, they can have a cup of tea. I used to lead walks, yes, physical activity, but it bringing spiritual development, emotional support as well, bring it with it. And then we have active aging. We used to run exercise classes, keep fit, and done beautiful work even in Nelson for our BAME groups. And she helped them to get funding to keep fit classes. And obviously, when there is no money, there is no group. That's a tragedy, but it should not happen like that. But yes, these things bring joy. These things bring clarity and life in your life. So I really believe that there's a strong link between them.
Yeah. And I think we always say that it doesn't really matter what activity you put on for people, the jawbones, it doesn't matter what exercise class or whatever, it's the jawbones that get used the most. Because people, it's for the socializing. It doesn't matter whether it's knit and natter or whether it's a language class or whatever it is, it's about the socializing. You offer tea and cake or samosas or whatever, that, people will turn up. If we put on an event in Nelson, with the cooking that our ladies do, believe you me, people turn up. I'm always signed up to that one. So I think that Shahid's absolutely right. And I think what maybe COVID, one of the lessons of COVID will be that an awful lot of people who weren't volunteering and weren't really doing a lot in their community before have started and feel the benefit from it, which they will take forward. Certainly in my own little village, just on the Cumbria and Lancashire border, I live in a tiny village, and yet I've met so many people through COVID because we have a COVID Facebook page, we have a COVID voluntary scheme. So in addition to the work I've been doing with Age UK, I've been involved in the background there. And it's been great because we're communicating as a village in a completely different way. And I hope that a lot of people who felt more isolated before have found ways of actually benefiting other people through it. So yeah, I absolutely wish Shahid giving is a great way of stimulating, keeping people connected. And I think you're right, in Asian extended families, where people, you're living as grandparents, maybe with grandchildren, so you're getting that stimulation of talking to different generations, of interacting, of going to the mosque, of going to the market, of all those different things. Whereas, often, in traditional British sort of families, we're a lot smaller. We can't wait for our kids to go, I've got 3, I've adult ones still to get rid of. We're plotting and failing to get shot of ours, where in Asian communities, people tend to take together, and I'm sure that is part and parcel of it, of keeping people of maybe reduced levels. It's going to be very interesting to see in future years as families are becoming more extended and more separated, as younger Asian teenagers are growing up and are moving to London for work, and that's where the life is. Whether we see a change in well-being in older people, and the doctor will probably know more about that than I ever do.
No, thanks, Anne. I do want to just remind the audience, even though we do have representatives from Age UK, loneliness is obviously an isolating experience, but it does affect other groups, not just the elderly. So immigrants, the unemployed, lone parents, those with long-term mental health conditions, disabilities, carers, people living in poverty. So it's a really big umbrella of people who suffer with loneliness. I just want to touch on the concept of social exclusion with you both. Obviously, that's defined as what can happen when people or areas have a combination of linked problems, like poor housing, perhaps, or discrimination, unemployment, and loneliness amongst the elderly is linked to social exclusion. And also, obviously, sometimes it can be due to migration as well, where obviously coming from a different country to the UK. What kind of things have you noticed through your work in terms of how people have coped and how we can spot these sort of things that are going in other people's? Because it's hard to read people from the outside. You don't really know what's going on inside, do you?
Well, I think, transport is often one of the, as Shahid touched on it before, just transport. And this is one of the reasons that we're always trying to push, with when bus routes get cut and all these issues. If you haven't got transport to get to places, that becomes isolating. If you haven't got the finances, as Shahid said, to be able to afford a taxi or a car to get to places. Yes, migration, as you say, that can be a really big factor as well in people feeling disconnected. And often as well, people might move closer to family. So, they think, I'll bring mum to live closer to me because she'll be far better off. Take her away from all the friends that she had in Manchester, or we'll bring her up to Combe because she's going to be closer to family and she'll be far better off. And family are all out at work all day. The kids are in school, son, daughter, out working. And actually, that person is far more lonely and isolated than they were when they were in Manchester. So
that reminds me of a recent conversation I had with my parents. That reminded me of a recent conversation I've had with my
so. Yeah, people think that they're doing absolutely the best for the parents when it actually can be very, very unsettling for people. So it's and often it's invisible. Some people you think, they're the most sociable people. Really, they're always chatting. They're always out and about, but actually loneliness is a very, very internal feeling, and you could be in a room at any age, teenagers, any age, surrounded by people and still feel lonely, because if you don't feel part of that group, if you don't feel that you've got the right clothes on, that you've got the language skills that Shahid very much mentioned before, you don't feel confident enough to speak, or you're being dragged along by family and you feel very uncomfortable. It's the wrong ethnic group, it's the wrong faith group, you've been dragged to somewhere where you feel uncomfortable, all sorts of things. So it can be very, very, very invisible, but there are a lot of factors that we can address, starting with, with finances really and sociability.
I think just to add to that, there's obviously the individual who perhaps doesn't want to or isn't able to express what they want to say because there may be fear of stigma, there may be an issue of pride. Do have to highlight that it's never too late to ask for help. So always do so, because the benefits will always outweigh everything else. But it's also, I guess, being mindful about carers and the burden. People don't like to be called as carers. It may be that the husband or wife or their children, but if we put them under the umbrella of carers, we have to also make sure that the bystander effect or the compassion fatigue doesn't set in. Because it may be that they've tried so many things, but then there's kind of this ambivalence or that lack of drive and motivation. So I think that's also key to understand.
I think it's quite interesting. I was having a conversation with the director of Silverline one day, and she was saying one of the busiest times that they have of older people telephoning, it's like childline for grown-ups, as they say. Older people ringing is 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's carers who are absolutely desperate. They've been caring all day. Maybe the partner's up and down all night. They're absolutely exhausted. It gets to 3 o'clock in the morning, and maybe the partner's just nodded off, and they just desperately need to talk to somebody. And I think, and because they are so lonely, they're so exhausted, and they haven't got their own backup system, and they don't like to admit. Carers are very proud people. They want to care for their family members, and they don't want to ask for help. And yeah, so they can be a very missed group. And I think, you know, my plea would be to go out there to anybody in that situation is that it's all right to ask for help. It's a really tough job. Anybody that's been a carer knows how tough it is. You're not alone. And that's one of the reasons, for example, we set up the dementia Zoom group for carers who've taken, you know, really taken that up. But also Lancashire carers have regular coffee mornings for carers of any age, and irrespective of the condition of the person they're caring for. So there's lots of ways. So, you know, it is very, very isolating being a carer, and also young carers as well. Very isolating for them.
I mean, Age UK is supporting the carers. I mean, like carers allowance. A lot of people do not know that they are spending so much time. Obviously, they think this is their responsibility to look after the loved one. But I mean, there's a support available as well if you are reducing your hours, working hours, you know, and looking after someone at home, or your mom or your dad or someone. There is a support, and Age UK has been always, I think, helped carers, and now, like through our project, particularly Integrated Care Program, we are helping people applying attendance allowance, and if they have a carer, you know, daughter or son or someone, we are helping them to apply carers allowance, and you can still earn £120, £122. Now it used to be £120. Now the government increased it to only £122 a week, and you can still be entitled for over £60 a week, and that allowance is available for the carers, and Age UK is helping them to apply that. And so, you know, again, money is a big factor in isolation. That's how, like Anne mentioned about the carers groups, carers link in Burnley, Accrington, they are supporting people, and through INT Integrated Neighbourhood Team in Nelson and in Cone, Age UK is part of that, and where basically the GP sit and all the other health professionals sit, and the third sector sit as well. So we working together how we can reduce isolation and help people in the community.
Excellent. We're coming rapidly to the end of the show. So before we actually tie things over, we do want to actually ask for your top tips, if that's possible, from both of you before we end the show.
Keep connected and keep active. I'll say for 2, Shahid.
Yes.
Ask for help.
Yeah,
most definitely. And give us a call. We've got teams of people on the end of the line who are friendly, helpful, a real person, and they'll be able to put you in touch with the right people. And if it's not something that's specifically relevant for us, we'll always know a man or woman who can help.
It's a great way. Yeah. Go ahead. Give us a number, Shahid.
Come on, Anne. You give a really good number.
Oh, the number. Oh, he said you were going to give it. 0300 303 1234. And I also want examples of people's creativity during lockdown for a book we're publishing in October. So stories, poems, artwork, photos, cake disasters, cake extravaganzas, gardening, how you felt on furlough, how you survived in your community. Please contact us at advice@ageuklancs.org.uk.
Excellent. I want to give deep gratitude to both you, Anne, Oliver, and Shahid Salim from both Age UK, obviously to my co-host, Dr. Mehran Javid, as well, for an hour that went by so quickly. Next week, we have Ian and Abdul. Ian is a primary teacher on the National Executive Committee of the National Education Union, representing Lancashire and Merseyside, and Abdul is a GP with a specialist interest in education as well. It should be a really informative topic, all things to do with education. Please think of your questions. Same time at 8 p.m. next week. And good evening from me, and very good night to everyone. Thank you again.
Bye.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Bye. Bye-bye.